Welcome back to Capital City Sunday. I am joined now by Tim Slecker, Dean of Education at Madison Edgewood College, and also Percy Brown, who I gave you the wrong title earlier. You are now the Middleton Cross Plains School District Director of Equity and Student Achievement. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Governor Walker, it seemed out of the blue, kind of brought Common Core state standards back into the news about a month ago, saying that when the legislature reconvenes in spring, he wants to see new standards written, he wants Common Core taken out, and new state standards put in. Tim, you've been a frequent guest of mine. You've talked a lot about this issue, I know, to people. You don't like Common Core, but you're also a little bit worried about when the governor says state-specific standards, because you don't like that sound either.
Well, it's not about standards. I think that's the issue that we have to get past right now. When Governor Walker is calling for a repeal, first of all, that's a political tactic to go after the base, particularly more Tea Party people that want the Common Core ended. What I'm saying at this point now, the research is so conclusive that talking about standards is a distraction when we should be talking about issues of equity and how students are prepared as they enter school and what we're doing in schools. So medical care, health care, access to books, all of those issues are never discussed because we're too busy talking about Common Core standards, Wisconsin standards, national standards, world standards. Standards by themselves have absolutely no causation, correlation to achievement because they're just statements. And so that's what, for me, it's now we need to get off of this discussion because it distracts us. And in fact, I think it distracts us purposely away from holding politicians accountable for what it is that they should be doing to provide for the opportunities that kids don't have when they enter school. What are you doing to prepare and to make sure that these kids are ready to learn? Because I'm telling you right now, insisting on changing standards, rewriting standards in January does nothing to prepare a kid to be ready to learn.
Percy, I want to ask you, because your focus is student achievement now with your job. So when I say the word student achievement, does it mean something different to you than it does for the people who are saying Common Core is great, it's going to measure the way we do things?
For me, achievement is about meeting the needs of all of our kids and ensuring that all kids have access and opportunities to be successful so that they can have opportunities once they leave post-secondary education. The Common Core standards, it sets a bar, and in my opinion, it accelerates curriculum. For example, at Middleton High School now, because of Common Core and because of rigor, it is going to be a graduation requirement for all of our students to pass Algebra 2. And as we know right now, if we look at data and we disaggregate it by race or socioeconomic status, we have students of color, students that come from poverty that enter high school that aren't even algebra ready. So we really need to look at, it's not about standards, it's about what are we doing within our institutions to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids, and some of that is resource allocation, some of that has to do with racial dynamics where we have a teaching force that's predominantly white, although we have a changing demographics. And we really need to look at what can we do within our institutions to change the game to make sure that we're ensuring success for all of our kids regardless of economic status or racial background.
Let me play devil's advocate with both of you because we don't have anybody here who's advocating for Common Core, but I know a common argument that I hear is, you know, we're setting the bar too low for kids as it is. You mentioned that kids in your district are going to have to be able to be proficient in Algebra 2 to graduate. There would be some who would say it's about time that we're not holding these kids to a high enough standard as it is. Is there some truth to that?
No, I don't think that, you know, the standards, again, are there. They've been there. You know, we've said, and in fact,
but have they? Because we know there are kids that graduate with high school degrees that maybe are on a 10th grade reading level.
You're talking about the ability to help children achieve and give them the opportunities to learn. Whether you have standards in place and punishments in place does not guarantee that a child will get to that point. In fact, they have putting those in place, again, don't affect the issues that children bring into the school. Conditions, again, outside, there's 40 years of empirical research that looks at what is it that you need to do. Simply, though, I mean, Dr. Stephen Krashen from UCLA keeps saying this time and time again, emeritus researcher. just limited access to health care, limited access to nutrition, limited access to books, you would spend less money than you're going to spend on Common Core and the tests, and you would do more to address the opportunity and achievement gap. Why? Because you're addressing the issues that matter. Writing standards and holding Percy and all of Middleton's every teacher accountable for something that they didn't have any control over, which are the conditions, except for what happens in that school. That's what they can control. So I don't, there's really not a devil's advocate position for me, because the research on this is very, very clear that it's not even, it really shouldn't be your side versus my side. I'm not arguing against Common Core standards. I'm telling you that the reform movement based on standards, based on tests, based on curriculum, based on punishing kids and teachers doesn't do anything to guarantee that that child will graduate high school reading. They're not connected.
Then what I'll ask you, and I'll start with you, Percy, what's the solution then? If it's not standard and if it's not something we can tangibly measure, how do we know kids are performing? We know right now they're underperforming in the United States. It seems like, at least, maybe not in some of the better high schools in the country, public schools and private schools, but overall, we're lagging behind a lot of countries now. So how do we make sure without these standards, or without standards in general, that these kids are getting educated the way they should be?
I do believe that standards are necessary, but in terms of closing gaps and being able to compete globally, it's not about the technical solution. I think we're always driven to find the technical solution or the magic bullet. I've been in public education for 10 years now, and technical solutions don't address social, emotional issues that kids come into schools with, or traumatic experiences that kids come into school with every day, or as Tim spoke to, the needs of health care, or how poverty impacts a kid's inability to be fed properly before they walk into the school. And those are the dynamics that we have to acknowledge and deal with, and the Common Core does not address those things that we have to address at schools in order to make sure that we're doing all that we can to make sure that kids are successful.
Would you be more comfortable with a system that was put in place that would perhaps take some of those things into account? In other words, and some who like the Common Core have said that they do, that there are areas where you may not have to achieve at such a high level if you have this many kids who are from poverty and so forth.
I don't know. I don't know that, again, I think
you're saying just the standards model is what the issue is.
The standards-based reform, which has been going on, since 1983, A Nation at Risk, where we were, talking about school failure, and we've been constantly on this American school failure. In fact, you just talked about it too. We're not measuring up. I would tell you that we are. In fact, we do know this. When we disaggregate data, when we talk about the issues that Percy talks about, socio-emotional well-being, socioeconomic well-being, kids in American public schools outscore internationally our other students, okay?
Students who come from,
right.
who are secure socioeconomically,
which again,
right?
So those are the issues. Again, it's the.
I think the problem a lot of people have.
People don't like it. Well, I can't do anything about that.
Right, and I think that
But
people are saying, there's nothing I can do as a school administrator.
But I can ask a politician. In fact, as a citizen, I can demand a politician to stop the nonsense about standards, about tests, about accountability, and do their job and what they can do as a politician to do something that they're put in office to do, which is the well-being of communities. Okay? We as educators will do our job to really make sure that we're doing everything we can in the classroom. But you have a part in this to play, politician, and your part is not to yell at us. Your part is to create opportunities so that the conditions kids live in are better than what they are today.
We got about 45 seconds. Just a quick yes or no answer. Are you more worried about the standards that may come out of the state legislature than you are about the Common Core standards, or as worried?
No, I'm more convinced than ever right now that the argument needs to shift away from standards.
Yes or no, or quickly?
I'm not concerned about that. I think I would piggyback on Tim. I'm more concerned about our approach moving forward to address the needs that really need to be addressed. If you think about Dane County and the racial disparities that exist, and it's not
worse
within
than the state.
Yeah, and it's not within just the Madison School District or Middleton or any other school district in Dane County, but think about the city. city government and jobs and housing. The same issues are faced in our larger community that we see in our school districts, and those are things that we really need to address if we want to level the playing field.
Got to cut you off there. I appreciate both of you for being here. Very enlightening as usual.